Supergirl from Warner Brothers and DC has absolutely bombed. It is tanked, it's flopped, it's done. We're going to show you how bad it is. We're going to do something a little different today with just a quick box office roundup here on Sunday ahead of the 8 p.m. Eastern live show this evening. So here we have it, $38 million. Who told you this yesterday? $38 million is where Supergirl has crash landed on its opening weekend domestically. Roughly another $30 million on the international box office. Now, what do we always say when the numbers continuously underperform or overperform in spectacular fashion as compared to where projections were coming into the weekend? We always say they're going to probably continue in that trend before we get actuals, meaning that the domestic box office at $38 million might actually be a smidge high. The international box office may also be a smidge high. This may actually be lower than the $68 million projected now. Now, let's take a look at some other things that we have to compare this to, because if we want to know where this movie is going, let me make this abundantly clear. Right here, it's going to the Marvels. The Marvels domestic box office concluded at $84 million, international box office at $121 million. Now, remember, with the Marvels, the opening weekend for this movie domestically was at $46 million nearly 3 years ago. 46. And that $46 million for the Marvels, releasing not even during the summertime, releasing just during November, legged out to 84, from 46 to 84. It didn't even quite make it to a 2x set of legs, a 1.83 domestically on the leg out for the Marvels. I don't think that Supergirl is going to even make it that high. I think as of right now, given the opening weekend, and if we presume that the generous top out on this movie may be somewhere around a 2x, then what we're looking at here is a domestic box office that's going to be under $80 million, or potentially right at it, maybe a smidge over, but there's so much competition coming out in the next 5 days from Minions and Monsters, for one thing. And we're going to get to some of the details on this, but I can't even see this movie getting to $150 million globally as of right now. One film out there that's probably thrilled to have some company is going to be Masters of the Universe, which was a pretty nasty bomb for this summer as well. Given the fact that this was a streamer's movie, an Amazon movie, we give it a little bit of credit for that because, again, Amazon has a very different general business model than, say, your traditional Hollywood studios like Disney and Warner Brothers and Paramount and so on and so forth. But be that as it may, we bring this one up because it's a movie that has allegedly a relatively similar production budget to that of Supergirl of around or close to $200 million. The thing, though, is that there is still some question about what this movie needs to break even. Now, I've been pretty consistent telling you that the break-even point on this movie is probably somewhere between $550 and $600 million at the retail level, and I bring that point up because it is important to get this right. Let's go over here to a Variety article picking up on this Sunday morning. Supergirl stumbles with a $38 million debut. Toy Story 5 remains number one with $70 million. We told you that there was no way that Toy Story was giving up the crown in its second weekend. Not only did Toy Story beat Supergirl, it beat the crap out of Supergirl. Nearly 2-1 on the box office, $70 million versus $38 million. That is where we are right now. These movies should have been a lot closer. Supergirl's performance should have been a lot closer. But what about the audience, right? Heading into the weekend, Warner Brothers and DC Studios was targeting a domestic start of around $50 to $55 million, which it never even got close to that. That would have already been a very soft launch for a big budget tentpole like this. Initial ticket sales are concerning for the studio because the movie's polarizing reception, as well as the intense competition during the peak of summer, could limit its theatrical staying power. It absolutely will. It's a gone pecan. This would be a problem because Supergirl carries a substantial $170 million price tag, not including the mega marketing budget. Now, listen carefully, kids. This is going to screw people up. Although economics vary from studio to studio, a movie of this size would need to earn at least $375 million to break even, since cinema owners get to keep roughly half the revenues. That doesn't mean the whole movie needs $375 million to break even. They're saying that based on the $170 million production costs alone. It would need $375 million to cover those. But again, going back to this does not include the mega marketing budget, which we told you for this film is easily $125 million. And I think there's going to be some speculation it was even more. They have spent a ton of money trying to push this through, as Warner Brothers should, because this is a key piece of intellectual property for that studio. But that 375 does not include recovering what they need to on the marketing side. Now, a source close to the film says the break-even point for Supergirl is closer to $300 million. Again, I'm going to question these figures, or at least the context in which they're being delivered. $300 million is absolutely 100% not going to be the all-in recovery figure, the threshold they need at the retail box office level. Again, it's absolutely going to be a lot closer to $600 million. So either the studio is suggesting that, hey, to cover the production costs alone, which would be a bit bizarre, to have that figure out there, we need to see $300 million at the box office, which I still feel like is a little shy. And then on the other side of it, you could also consider that they need to recover $300 million net back from theatrical, meaning they need $300 million to make it back to Warner Brothers to cover all of their costs. That number seems pretty accurate to me. And in fact, this $300 million figure, or $315 million, I think was also reported by Deadline in the last couple of weeks. And we discussed the same thing there. I felt like that number is something like we've seen in the past from places like Puck Magazine, that once said Paramount was looking to recover around $400 million before they're in the black when it came to Top Gun Maverick. And that was $400 million net back to the studio because the movie had a pretty significant amount of production costs. They also marketed the piss out of that movie. And Tom Cruise walked away with something like $100 million on that film after all the escalators went in due to the box office. So you've got to pay attention to how things get quoted, and I wish that Variety and Deadline had been a little bit more clear on this, because in and of itself, certainly at the retail box office, this number doesn't make any sense. Now, let's look at some of the other things. What happened here? Where, the men didn't show up, right? The chuds, it was our fault this movie failed. Critics didn't like Supergirl, holding a 56% on Rotten Tomatoes, while the audiences appear mixed with a B- grade. So the people that saw it gave it a B-. Initial crowds were 60% male, 59, call it 60% men. What happened? Where did all the girls go? Okay, so the dudes showed up. The women didn't show up. The women didn't care. Same thing with the Marvels and a lot of these other movies like this with these female superhero movies. They just don't tend to do that well, especially when you don't honor the actual source material, as is the case here with this movie, as many DC fans would argue. The film didn't break out beyond the core superhero fan base. Yeah, it looks like a normal superhero movie. So you can't blame the men for not going. The men are the people that showed up. The women didn't really show up. I would expect to see on a movie like this, I would think that the audience should be at least 60% in the other direction, being women, but that's not what we got here. So y'all let me know out there what you think, where this movie is going. As it stands right now, you've got Supergirl at $68 million. And yeah, I'm thinking $150 million is the top end for this, and it might not even quite get there. It's going to have a lot of problems internationally, domestically. It doesn't matter. Nobody around the globe has really any interest in this, and it's a very expensive film. Warner Brothers is probably going to be looking to lose nearly $200 million on this. At least, I would think. I mean, again, this movie needed to get to $600 million or close to it. They needed to get $300 million back at Warner Brothers. As of right now, they've only got, after opening weekend, out of the $300 million they needed net back to Warner, they've maybe got 30 to 35, somewhere in that neighborhood. Have fun, guys. This is bad.